Hello old-timers and newcomers, I am Cole Scratches. And I don't want to do this. That's a lie. All I want to do is this. But I am one of those unfortunates for who the pursuit of happiness is an anxiety-ridden struggle I would rather lie in bed till 2 o'clock in the afternoon than deal with. But sharing my thoughts in video form online is the closest I get to socializing, damn it! So, having fun shouldn't be a struggle, but it is. And sitting down to watch a movie shouldn't be a testament of strength, but it is. And the mountain that I climbed this week is the jocular titan of the found footage boom, CLOVERFIELD. I wasn't always into found footage. At times I was an outsider looking in. As I remember it, I heard of the Blair Witch Project when I was maybe 5 and forgot about it within a month. Years passed without me even hearing the words found footage, until the Paranormal Activity franchise kicked it into the limelight, and just like that, it was everywhere. And what felt like the peak of its popularity was crowned by the arrival of CLOVERFIELD. Produced by J.j Abrams, directed by Matt Reeves, and written by Drew Goddard, with a viral marketing campaign that would make Roland Emmerich blush. It was a titan phenomenon, topping the found footage phenomenon's mainstream popularity, and also heralding its end, with moviegoers in droves needing to leave theaters due to motion sickness. So this may also be the film that gave the genre such a bad name. It's also the first found footage movie that I ever saw. I remember being frustrated. I was sitting there waiting for the video to cut and for the camera to pan away from the guy showing the scene for the real movie to begin, basically. I did not know how to process an entire movie made to look like it was filmed on Handycam. It was too strange for me. Then I saw Paranormal Activity and everything clicked. So what's this movie about? Well, I'm gonna pull a J.j Abrams and not actually tell you. You'll have to discover it for yourself by watching this review where I completely spoil the 14-year-old movie. On that note, I found an overwhelming amount of trivia about this movie, like the beginning references the Dharma Initiative from Lost, the name refers to Cloverfield Boulevard in California, all of the characters had MySpace pages that stopped being updated when the movie premiered. This movie got background. And I ain't man enough to cover all of it. It begins with Jesus Christ, look at the affluence! Sorry. The movie begins in an apartment that would make the cast of Friends jaundiced, where we meet the awkwardly erotically splayed Beth, played by Odette Annabelle, woken up by Rob, played by Michael Stahl-David.
Fine, cover up, see if I care. I'm interested in other things.
Like what?
Like you.
I must say, it's a little bit annoying. The camera was definitely there to watch them having sex, and yet that's not included in this presentation. The DoD thought the party preparations were important enough to include among the evidence, but not the sex. That said, not counting the end credits, the movie is a bit less than 80 minutes long, or about the length of a mini DV tape. And every now and again the movie is interrupted by clips of Beth and Rob having fun together. That's because the events of the main story are being taped over an old tape Rob forgot to remove from the camera. And all of the editing was just the characters turning the camera on or off as the movie progressed. It creates a very interesting way of telling the story, first showing Beth and Rob as a happy couple in love, catching us up on the backstory and deepening the drama in one clever go. The only problem is you can tell this was definitely not filmed on a mini DV tape. Especially when you're watching it on Blu-ray. In current events, or about a month later, Jason and his girlfriend Lily, played by Mike Vogel and Jessica Lucas, are preparing a going-away party for his brother Rob. Lily wants Jason to film testimonials from everyone at the party for Rob to look back on while he's in Japan, so they borrowed his camera without telling him. That's a pretty shit job though, so he hands this responsibility over to Hud, out of shape, slow-witted and awkward. I'm embarrassed at the kinship I feel with this man.
Easy enough?
Yeah. It's actually kind of fun.
You enjoy it, Hud.
Fun fact, this movie was Miller's breakout role, launching a long career of movies and TV shows that, for the most part, I never even realized he was in. Yeah, I'm sorry, dude, but no one remembers anything about from Deadpool other than Reynolds. And I never wondered who was behind any of the voices for How to Train Your Dragon or Big Hero 6. A main concern of Hud's is Marlena, played by Lizzie Kaplan, who, despite Hud's infatuation, barely knows he exists. How compelling. Fortunately, he does manage to pick up on the drama going on between Rob and Beth, and manage to spread it around the party like monkeypox.
Beth told Lori that after you guys got together, you totally blew her off.
I didn't blow her off.
She said you never called her.
I'm leaving, all right? But there's no together. It's just her and me, two separate things. It's better if we just stay friends.
Furthering the friends analogy, at first I thought Rob was Ross in this situation, but Rachel is the one who was leaving for Paris at the end of the show, so either way, I need both of them to meet a horrible, horrible fate.
Forget the world and hang on to the people that you care about the most.
Oh, God! Oh, my God! What the hell was that?
Ask and ye shall receive. Right as our leads are about to become annoying, the plot comes trampling with thunder and fervor. The news speak of earthquake and a capsized oil tanker on the New York waterways, and from the rooftop the frightened partygoers bear witness as the skyline is marred by fire and smoke when an unknown enemy declares war on the city. Here's another fun fact. That shot was inspired by posters for the Escape from New York movie. And here's a funny fact. Originally, the CGI model for the head was accurate to scale, according to the dimensions publicly available. But after multiple moviegoers complained about the size of the head in the trailer, CGI supervisor David Vickery increased it by 50% for the movie. It's as if America collectively decided they needed to stuff their britches. Immediately the crowds raised their phones and photographed the brutalized landmark, distancing themselves from the unfathomable reality through the filter of digital screens. But revelation will not be withheld. The distant streets explode in a screen of dust and concrete, but through the whirling smoke Hud just barely glimpsed the shape of something moving through the debris.
Grab my sword! It's alive!
A memorable, if kind of vague line, which accurately describes the entire movie. Despite how fantastically massive the creature is, very few times do we actually see more than glimpses of it in the distance, which was risible in Emmerich's Godzilla, but in this instance I'm more forgiving of it, since the entire movie is shot from this one camera, and your natural instinct in that situation would be to run away from the cyclopic thing looming in the background, ever destructive and ever present, with everyone's life suddenly reduced to insignificant insects. Of course, I didn't see any of that as a kid. I just saw crappy CGI and a jerky camera that refused to become a real movie. I was at an age where if I could tell something was CGI, it was bad CGI. Today I'm terrified by the prospect of no longer being able to tell when something is CGI. In just a few minutes, the upscale New York street has changed entirely. Concrete and asphalt dust saturates the air, suppressing the roaring fires. The buildings gape wide, with sheets of their walls torn off and crumbled on the ground, and through it all the shell-shocked people stutter out of the haze, unable to understand what even happened. And from this earthborn hell emerges the shattered Marlena, and when they ask what she saw, she can barely find the words. It was eating people. It was eating everyone. It's remarkable the calm they show when they decide to vacate the city. Nobody runs, nobody panics, they all collectively move away from the area towards the Brooklyn Bridge, for the most direct route to safety they can find. A small strip of asphalt connecting the island and mainland. As soon as they've crossed, it'll all be over. But again and again, Rob tries to reach Beth, who left their party before it began. And when he finally gets through, disaster strikes again.
What do you mean you can't move?
Creature designer Neville Page imagined the creature as similar to a baby elephant in a circus, lashing out at the chaos surrounding it. In his own words, there is nothing more terrifying than something massive that has been spooked. Keeping that in mind makes the seemingly random destruction far easier to swallow, and also a lot more horrifying when you start to question, what on earth could have spooked that thing? This movie has no damn sequels, do you understand me? But watching the movie without that context has you going, huh, what an inconvenient place for a random limb to smack down. The destruction is amazing to watch. It's not like a Roland Emmerich movie where you're taking it all in from a distance. It doesn't go wide-angled or panoramic. You're right there alongside the characters, experiencing the event unfolding around them, from the panicked screams to the collapsing bridge, and it doesn't feel like the scene stops for the camera to get the best shot, even though there are at least 2 glorious frames of the scene. They run in blind panic until the last drops of adrenaline burn through their bodies, and they're forced to stop, unable to flee what just happened. Lily breaks apart, unable to even stand by herself as her mind forces her to relive the moment. At first he was there, then he was gone, like a flick of a switch. Rob too relives the moment. In the blink of an eye he lost his brother. Without reason and without explanation, just vanished. It doesn't feel real. People can't just vanish like that. But Jason did, and he dials the number again only for the battery to die. His world and all concerns melt away as his eyes focus on the electronics store being looted, and he runs. Hud runs after him and screams, demanding to know what the hell he's doing. They need to leave, they need to try another bridge. And he only quiets when he sees the news broadcast. From the safe distance of helicopters, the news crew broadcast the videos of the creature attacking the city, and the military's attempt to fell it. He watches in horror as the servicemen unload magazine by magazine towards the mountainous thing, and for a moment it seems to work as pieces begin falling off. But hope turns to horror as the cameras catch the flesh falling down. How it gets up on myriad legs, and how it hunts the soldiers down. Now, they need to leave now, he screams at Rob, but not one thing of this is a concern to him. And I am very happy my movie had subtitles, because I couldn't freaking hear what she said. Something the movie does very well is motivation. The actors do even if occasional dramatic moments like this does make it feel a bit artificial. But I feel like I've gotten to know all the characters the way I would a person. And between Rob and Beth's history and seeing him lose his brother, not only do I understand why Rob decides to go look for Beth, but I actually empathize with him. But we haven't had time to do all of that with the other characters, so we still need to contrive them not tackling him to the ground and dragging his ass back to the bridge.
What about police, fire department?
Couldn't get through. I
Okay,
tried.
it just seems a little...
Out of context, but does anyone remember this game called Prototype? You played as the Thing's edgy uncle, running up buildings, absorbing people, turning your body into weapons, fighting zombies and monsters with the military hunting you down. Why was that never turned into a movie? Okay, I'm paying attention. Miraculously, there is a subway station nearby for the 4 to take shelter in as they above them. They can't move from where they are. They're trapped between the wait for the world to turn around them. Eventually they realize they can simply walk through the tunnels away from the conflict and towards Beth's apartment. But down there in the dark, with the suffocating emptiness constricting around them, they have also cut off their means of escape. Marlena is the first to notice the rats. They're pouring out of the tunnel, desperate away from whence they came. And what scares a New York rat? You best fear yourself.
Is it on?
Run. Okay, run.
I would find this scene tense, but the bugs sound like terriers with a sore throat. I can't help but find that adorable. Quite convincing CGI doesn't help either, but there is a reason for this. Originally they were going to use life-sized puppets to make this scene, but when they tried, they found the puppets were too cumbersome to move around in a convincing way, so CGI was their best option for making the bugs come to life. As luck would have it, Lily finds a utility door that just happens to be unlocked, allowing them to escape and care for Marlena's wounds. One of the bugs off of HUD, but took a nasty bite in turn, and we best hope. Between the bugs, the lack of food, and the monster on the streets above, none of their options are very hopeful. But reaching the surface seems to be their best shot, so they gather themselves up and move. Blinding white light meets them, and like a prayer to heaven answered, suddenly they find themselves surrounded by military and healthcare personnel. Blind, stupid luck dropped them into the lap of a field hospital, where victims of the attack are cared for, whether by debris, anarchy, or indeed insect bites.
I don't feel so good.
You may I didn't refer to the bugs as parasites. I didn't want to ruin that scene. Just like that, Marlena is gone. She vanished from sight and suddenly she's dead. Just like Jason and just like... They are so close to Columbia Heights and Beth's apartment. When they need it the most, a soldier takes pity on them and leads them away from the groups of evacuees. He tells them he won't stop them if they're going out there, but they should know that come dawn, the powers that be will let all of Manhattan go. There is a transport leaving at 6 o'clock, and if they're not on it, then that's it. Even now, neither Lily nor HUD will let Rob go, even as they face their biggest risk yet.
Rob, is that her place? Tell me that's not her place.
That's your place, yeah.
Okay. I realize Bayfoss is the bread and butter of comedy today, but would it have killed anyone to maybe appreciate how serious the situation suddenly became?
I need to talk about something. Otherwise, I'm actually probably gonna shit my pants in this stairwell.
Fuck you! You're ad-libbed anyway! I can't begin to imagine what it must feel like to climb a structure this perilous. The standing building makes for an easy way up, but once they're level with the roof and they climb across and inside the toppled structure, and the entire 10 to the 20th ton building threatens to come crashing down at any moment, enough to make a person seasick no matter the camera movement. True to their luck, they find Beth in the most convenient yet perilous way possible. Where her message made it out beneath a wall, in fact she's laid out not far from the shattered windows and the open chasm beneath the buildings, but hooked onto a spear of rebar sticking out of the concrete. Alive but in brutal pain as the shock fades when they lift her off of the stake. In spite of fate, beyond odds and mortal circumstance, they did it. They reached the princess and saved her from the tower. With the dragon on their heels, they ran, and truly they ran away. They made it back to the evacuation zone, and they made it aboard the transports, all of them. And as the finish line approaches, they are gifted with front row seats when the military finally takes the monster down.
That's what I'm talking about!
You didn't expect a happy ending, did you? Of Godzilla, but the trinity of Abrams, Reeves and Goddard made it whole again. A corrupt piece of divine firmament saddled within a devil of their own making, indestructible and unyielding in the face of impotent human notions of their significance to the world. The monster lives. It struck their chariot from the sky, and they are trapped with no way out of coming nuclear apocalypse. But that doesn't mean the film can't be a bit silly. Malena did say something about the monster eating people, which is oddly refreshing for that to be the motivation of a giant monster, but I just find it really dumb how it picks out the one guy with the camera, scoops him up, chews him, ignores the other two morsels on the ground, and then spits the guy back out so they can have the camera back. Yeah, I'm not joking, that's what happens.
My name is Robert Hawkins. Approximately 7 hours ago, something attacked the city.
Here's another funny fact. Michael Stahl David is such a bad actor. When the movie was first released, one of the fan theories floating around was that he knew what was going on, because he didn't look scared when describing the monster, just concerned.
If you found this tape, I mean, if you're watching this right now, then you probably know more about...
Not really. I mean, again, this movie has no sequels. But if it did, they may have implied that the creature came from another dimension and it was brought here due to experiments conducted in space. But if these sequels existed, which they don't, they wouldn't truly have been sequels. They would have been scripts written with nothing to do with Cloverfield, but then had some lore jerry-rigged on top of them to strengthen the presence of otherwise forgettable movies. Luckily, we live in a universe where that didn't happen. This movie has no sequels. No. And to this day, very little is known about the monsters. We don't know where it came from, we don't know why, and we don't know what these events amounted to. I can say the monster is probably called Clover because that's what the special effects team called it. There is nothing left, just seconds ticking out. Beth says goodbye to the camera after Rob has said his piece. Then they tell each other they love one another, and with one last explosion, the bridge collapses on top of them. For want of a happy ending, the tape can only show what was. The last few seconds are what remains of their day at Coney Island. They're happy and in love, and with only seconds left, Beth turns to the camera and says she had a really good day. And she rests her head on Rob's shoulder, and the tape runs out. Well, that was nice. I mean, it's not exactly a happy ending, but it did show, while this is how it ended, it did show they also had a whole life together, and that's worth something, I guess. As for the whole movie, it's as if Reeves and Goddard took notes of everything, of every criticism leveled against Emmerich's Godzilla, and then made it better. To Godzilla, by extension I'm comparing it to all kaiju movies. Unfortunately, I've only ever seen the American ones, Shin Godzilla and Godzilla vs. Biollante, so this is not something I can speak with any kind of expertise on. But from what little I know of kaiju movies, Cloverfield seems to more or less reinvent the genre. The surface similarities are there. A giant monster appears, unmakes everything a small group of characters know and love, and we follow how the horror and devastation affects them through the story. But, unlike traditional kaiju movies, at no point do the characters try to defeat the monster. They immediately submit to its awful power and either avoid or try persevering through it. They're not trying to strike back at the threats, but navigate it, hoping not everything will be lost. In a sense, I'd argue Cloverfield takes the basic point of a kaiju movie and does it better than any other kaiju movie, since it doesn't portray the monster as anything you can fight back against. There's also a remarkable variety to the film. At first it's a drama, then it's a disaster film, then it's a kaiju film, then it's a war epic. It goes from chaotic streets to deathly tunnels, environments change like a femme fatale's wardrobe, problem to problem change with every passing scene, from hostile streets to collapsing buildings. There's even smaller monsters to compensate for the cramped spaces the bigger monster can't reach. The one kaiju movie I can think of similar to this is Gamera 2, Attack of Legion, and even then I feel this movie did it better. But it's worth clarifying, I still haven't seen that movie, just reviews of it, so take what I said with a pinch of salt. There's also an air of mystery about the film which I appreciate. Yeah, I know the sequels that don't exist may have given some answers to what was going on. But I prefer not knowing where the monster came from or why it went on a rampage. Not only doesn't it actually matter in the circumstance, but not having all the answers only deepens the feeling of hopelessness and the world descends into when the monster attacks. Forcing contrived answers only dilutes the experience. That said, to admit, for all the skill directing and writing that went into the movie and shaking up the standard kaiju formula, at no point did I feel any fear on behalf of the characters. The pieces are there, but I can't connect with them, and I don't know if that's because I'm jaded or it doesn't look or feel real. I will say, for being a relatively early found footage movie, it's actually one of the more faithful uses of the technique I've seen. At the onset, found footage seems easy. Film the events unfolding with a handycam. If there's one camera, you can switch cameras or even film from different angles, and if you cut, it has to be because the camera stops recording. And yet you would not believe the amount of found footage films I've seen that don't follow that simple sense. The video quality is unrealistically good, as is the audio for the medium it's meant to be. But so far as editing and behavior for the setup is concerned, it's a simple, very basic use of the technique, but it's done very well, and I'm willing to accept that. I suppose that may be what turns me off from the movie. For all its creativity, it's actually fairly generic. It does a lot of interesting things at the same time, but it never goes especially far with any of them. Rob loves Beth and needs to save her. Great, but the drama never goes deeper than that. A giant monster attacks the city. Awesome! But despite the interesting separation anxiety angle the designers came up with, in the movie it's just a monster attacking the city. The military fights back. Cool, but it's just a bunch of actors throwing special effects at more special effects. There's devastation on a grand scale. Sure, but it's not like it becomes an obstacle or main theme or any kind of focus put on it, it's just set dressing. Don't get me wrong, I realize what a monumental request it would be to give depth to all of these things at the same time, and I would rather have a multi-million-dollar movie do simple things really well than trying complicated things and doing them poorly. Why do I feel struck by that sentence? But for everything that went into the film, it just feels too shallow for the spectacle it delivers. It's a grand spectacle, it's a blockbuster spectacle, but an empty spectacle that looks f***er than it is. I sentence Cloverfield to a 7 of 11. Guys, this movie has no fucking sequels. Understood? Despite what this joke box is telling me. Thank you all for watching. I have been Cool Scratches, and I hope you will join me again next time to take another look at what I found.